Hey guys, it's M4J here, and welcome back to the M4J Network here on OpenTTD. Before I get started, before I definitely get started, Google, stop. Okay, before I get started, you might hear my voice is a little bit iffy still. I kind of burned out my voice a little bit last week. I did my streaming, I did my videos, it's just everything. So I completely blitzed my voice, so I've been resting over the weekend, but not entirely, because I've still been having debates with my family about football and things like that. Anyway, some people didn't even notice last week that my voice was a bit weird. Maybe if you compare it, I don't know. It feels weird. That's the thing, it feels weird. It might not sound weird, but it feels weird. Today, we are getting up to HighSpeed Hijinks. We are completely finishing off the HighSpeed network between Gardcity St George and Gronnwell Superion, and also Plenborough Taurina. We've already got the Bahecity branch up and running, although we will be adding more services to that in the future. And then we'll be running trains, which is very exciting. Now, this is something I actually forgot about. I thought GSG was the hub of the high-speed network, but it really isn't when you compare station sizes. So I did mention this during the stream, but I'll mention it again here. GSG is 4 high-speed platforms and 2 railjet platforms. Trying to remember how. Oh, Gronnwell has 3 high-speed platforms and 2 railjet platforms. Most stations have 2 railjet platforms, so that tends to be the one where, I mean, railjet is going to be like a one-off thing. There'll be one between GSG and Gronnwell, one between GSG and Plenborough, one between Plenborough and Gronnwell. There will not be a railjet, I don't think, that runs to Bahecity, because I suppose there could be actually. We'll see. It might be a bit more limited though. But yeah, Bahecity only has 4 express platforms, and some of those are also used for the East Coast Express services. Although again, I might re-divert those to the sort of first set of outer platforms beyond the middle 4, or at least have that as an overflow, just so that it's not completely clogged up all the time. Plenborough, on the other hand, has about 12 high-speed platforms in total, and I think 4 of them are railjet. So I think Plenborough might become the new high-speed hub. So most services will, apart from the one that runs between GSG and Bahecity and the one that runs between GSG and Gronnwell, the rest of them pretty much will all start at Plenborough. So I have got one from GSG to Plenborough. I will have to change that in the not too distant future. Beyond that though, everything seems to be working now. I moaned last week during the stream about the way scheduled dispatch seems to work. For some reason now, if a train arrives back at the depot and it's not due to leave again until 5 AM the next morning, say it arrives at 5 PM and it's not due to leave until 5 AM, instead of just saying waiting in depot and train is running on time, these days for some reason it now says the train is running 2,000 minutes ahead of schedule, or it's 2,000 minutes early. And that really bugged me for a while, and I kept trying to reset the schedule to try and make it work and to stop it saying it was early, and eventually I just thought, you know what, I'm going to leave it and see what happens. And it seems to have fixed it. So it does still say it's running early, but I guess if it's in the depot that's not an issue. It's only if it dispatches out to the shed and the train stops there and then says it's 2,000 minutes early, that's when we have a problem. But if it's in the actual depot and it's saying that, then you know, I'm not too fast. I think we're okay in that scenario. So the topic of today's video, this might sound like a bit of a strange one considering we're working with high speed, but when I explain it, it'll make a little bit more sense. What I want to talk about today is mainland European budget rail travel. So in the UK, we don't really have anything like budget rail travel. We tend to rely on coach travel a lot for that sort of thing, which is fine. You know, don't get me wrong, things like National Express and Megabus and things like that, they work very, very well. But in Europe, they had a company called Flixbus, which still exists, and that's F-L-I-X. It does sound a bit like you're saying flex with a South African accent, but I assure you it is Flix. They run buses, or coaches I should say, basically all over mainland Europe. So mostly in Germany. I believe they are a German company, but they've expanded recently into other countries surrounding Germany, And in fact, I think they go into places like... in fact, you know what? Instead of guessing, it'd be a lot better if I just looked it up. So that's one thing to do with budget travel, but that's not rail. So why am I talking about FlixBus? Well, FlixBus not long ago expanded into the rail industry and created a new service called FlixTrain, which again seems to be based mostly in Germany. I think it has now crossed into France. Again, I'm not 100% sure. But what I love about FlixTrain is the trains themselves are massive. They're mostly 15, 16 carriage trains, the long distance services. I've been watching a lot of travel vlogs. I mentioned this on the Discord, but I've been watching, I need to remember what their channel names are. Simply Rail is one of them. Simply Railway, sorry, is one of them. And Dylan's Travel Reports is the other. I will try and remember to link them both, probably on the Discord, because that's something I'll be more likely to remember to do. Yeah, I watched Simply Railway going on the FlixTrain, and it's a massive service. Between Berlin and Stuttgart was the one that they went on, and it's incredible what they've done, because they've taken old rolling stock. That's what I wanted to get the point across. They've taken old rolling stock, old German intercity carriages, and oh god, I've just turned on my Xbox. That's probably going to ruin this recording. They've changed the branding on it to FlixTrain. Yep, I turned my Xbox on, and because of that, it switched all my monitors around, and that ended the recording, which is really annoying. I did notice straight away, thankfully, so I haven't wasted any time. But yeah, I've just pulled the power cable out the back of my Xbox, so that should hopefully never happen again. Anyway, yes. So the old intercity carriages, they used to belong to Deutsche Bahn. I don't know whether FlixTrain have bought them outright or whether they're hiring them in, but they've rebranded them into FlixTrain livery, which is this very vibrant, bright lime green type colour, which sometimes looks awesome and sometimes looks terrible. It's mixed with a bright orange, which I can't criticise that, because when I used to play golf, I had my favourite shirt, which was like a burnt orange with bright lime collars and sleeves. So I really can't criticise. I might find a picture of that actually, because I used to love turning up on the first tee and just seeing the looks people would give me when I'm wearing this like bright neon shirt. Anyway, that's not what I want to talk about either. The service itself is pretty basic. It's all standard class. I don't think there's any like special perks or anything. I do think there is a buffet car though, which for a 6-hour journey, you know, you need that. Let's be honest. But I watched the video, and I knew about FlixBus. I'd seen videos of FlixBus. I think there's a game actually involving FlixBus, which I've seen Squirrel play in the past. But I hadn't realised about FlixTrain. I didn't know that it existed. And I have to admit, it's pretty cool what they're doing. And I've mentioned this before with Viva Rail. I love this idea of upcycling trains and taking old stock and sort of giving it a new lease of life out on the network. And I really think FlixTrain have done that perfectly with the way they've created this fleet of trains. It's old locomotives and it's old rolling stock, capable of 125 mph running. And the great thing about it is it's cheap. It's really cheap. €9 is the base rate for Berlin to Stuttgart. That can change depending on how late or early you book your ticket, but actually I think €9 is the cheapest, and it goes up the closer to date of travel. So you might get stung a little bit towards the end if you book like right as the train's pulling into the platform, for example. But it doesn't use the high-speed rail. It uses the conventional rail that runs alongside it. But as I said, it's 125 mph running. It looks like a really comfortable service. The seats look nice. The food and drink looks good. And it's €9 if you book at the right time. €9 to travel across the country. That's insane. That's about, I want to say about £7 to £8, give or take. Again, I want to look this up because I don't want to get that wrong. I don't really know what the exchange rate is right now, and I try not to look because it just, let's not go there. It's about 90p to the pound right now, so €9 is £8.12. Now imagine in the UK buying a ticket between London and Edinburgh for £8.12. That's just unheard of. That is incredibly unheard of. France are doing something similar. The TGV, SNCF, they have a service called WeGo. which is the budget version of the TGV. Now the great thing about WeGo is it's a little bit more expensive than something like FlixTrain, but it uses TGVs and it runs on the high-speed lines. So you can get a very, very cheap service from, let's say, Paris to Toulon, and you'll get there in just this roughly the same amount of time as if you were on an actual TGV, full-fat TGV, should we say. I think the WeGo makes more stops along the way, so it becomes a slower journey because of that. But you run at full speed on the high-speed lines, and it's a TGV. You know, it uses the old duplex TGV units. I think they use more modern locos from 2010, I believe. But the carriages themselves are from the original TGV Euro duplex, I think it is, units, which date back from 2002, which isn't that old when you think about it, but kind of old. Now, the reason I want to talk about these two things today is because you'll notice a common theme between the two. They are very different in terms of the service they offer. I believe WeGo does have a sort of first-class system, whereas FlixTrain is pretty much basic standard. Both trains in the videos I watched were rammed full of people, and that really tells you all you need to know. It's not necessarily about travelling in comfort. It's not necessarily about travelling at speed. It's about getting from A to B as efficiently and as cheaply as possible, and that is what most people are interested in these days. And these two services, WeGo and FlixTrain, they were both set up to combat budget airlines, and I think they both achieved that goal very, very well. And that's what we're missing here in the UK. So there is an exception to this. Grand Central are about to start running a service between London Euston and Blackpool North along the West Coast Main Line, and they're using former LNER Class 91s and Mark IV carriages and driving van trailers. So that's the only example I can think of in the UK of an open access operator using former rolling stock from another operator. I do believe we need more of that in the UK. I think it is perfectly plausible to use old rolling stock on a budget service around the UK. There is, I think it is GNER or GNWR. I can't remember what the. There's at least one new open access operator coming soon that will be running services between London and Edinburgh via, I think it's just York and Newcastle, maybe Northallerton as well. I can't remember off the top of my head. But they've ordered new Hitachi units. And that to me completely defeats the point. Okay, it's open access. Okay, they've got the money. They can spend it how they wish. But wouldn't it have been great to actually encourage them to take old HSTs, for example, and refurbish them, or take old Class 90s or 91s and refurbish them? Because they're perfectly capable of still offering a service at 125 miles per hour, which is the top speed on the East Coast Main Line anyway. And in fact, the Class 91s have a top speed of 140, which even if the East Coast Main Line is upgraded to 140 mile an hour running and the IETs start operating at that speed, the Class 91s can too. And in fact, the Class 91s were even built with the, well, not the 91s themselves, but the Mark IVs were built with the capability of having tilting technology added to them, so they could potentially run even faster. Right now, they're all sitting in scrapyards. You know, they've basically all been withdrawn, apart from the ones that have gone to Grand Central, of course. The rest have all been withdrawn, and it looks very likely like we'll be losing them forever. I think the government should create incentives to open access operators to actually use old rolling stock and, you know, give it a breath of fresh air, a bit like what FlixTrain have done. SNCF still operate the WeGo trains, so at least I think they do. I think it's got their logo on the side. So you could argue that they're just using their old rolling stock to get, you know, one last revenue earning out of them, which sounds a bit callous when you say it like that, but I mean it as a good thing. They're being smart. They're not just scrapping these things. So I think, yeah, the government here, the DFT, they should be offering incentives, maybe like a cheaper running cost to a company that's willing to use old rolling stock, and actually make a reason, give them a valid, genuine reason to use old trains, not just give them an excuse to order in new trains all the time. Because as much as I like the Hitachis, and as much as I think they have changed the landscape of British rail, it seems like the easy option at the moment. New operator comes in, and immediately it's either order from Hitachi, order from Stadler, order from Bombardier, order from CAF. The 4 big hitters in this case. There's no incentive to utilise the original rolling stock. Avanti are still keeping the Pendolinos, but the Voyagers and Super Voyagers are gone. And again, if there's an open access operator willing to operate services on non-electrified main routes that, you know, maybe, let's just say as an example, Paddington to Birmingham. I think that's still a viable route. Say if someone wants to run an open access route between those 2 stations via Didcot, Oxford, somewhere else along that route. I can't remember off the top of my head. I think Honeybourne is along that way. You know, give them an incentive. Give them an incentive. Say to them, we'll charge you a quarter less to use the track if you promise to use the Voyagers. Something like that. It'll be a bit more structured than that, of course. It won't just be them sitting at a desk, rubbing their chin, thinking off the top of their heads. But why not use these trains? They're not broken, they're not damaged, there's nothing wrong with them. They're still perfectly capable. They just need a bit of TLC and a bit of love. So why not give companies an excuse to actually do that? Again, Flixtrain. The carriages themselves are not the nicest to look at. They're not the nicest to ride in, I imagine. But because they're so cheap, they are full every single day of travellers travelling all across Germany and eventually all across mainland Europe as well. We need that here. We really need that here. And, you know, I think about the old Eurostars, the 373s that were scrapped, and I just think, what a waste. Because let's say HighSpeed 2 is eventually connected to HighSpeed 1. I have my own ideas as to how that would work, but I don't personally know enough about it myself to know for sure whether it would work or not. But let's say Stratford to Old Oak Common. There's a new set of tunnels built across there that will connect HighSpeed 2 to HighSpeed 1. Wouldn't it have been brilliant to have these old Eurostars be used for open access high-speed services between, say, Birmingham Curzon Street and Marseille? Or, you know, Manchester Piccadilly and Barcelona? How cool would that have been? And because it's, you know, at least 100 miles an hour most of the route, it won't take as long as you think. It won't take as long as you think. And high-speed rail like that in Europe is very, very common. Even, you know, 4-hour, 5-hour, 6-hour journeys at 200 odd miles an hour is very common. We don't have that here in the UK, and it might feel a bit weird to begin with. But wouldn't that have been a perfect solution to the problem? You know, you fully justify the existence of HighSpeed 2 at that point as well. You completely silence the doubters when you then say to them, but who's now going to go to an airport and wait for 2 hours in departures when they could already be on the move on a train? Yes, trains are slower than aircraft. That is a fact that can never be denied. But if you make it cheaper, and if you make it more practical, and you make it more convenient, it will attract people. It will attract people. No one wants to sit in an airport for 2 hours waiting for their flight to leave. No one wants to stand for an hour and a half at the baggage claim waiting for their suitcase to come round. Everyone wants to rock up at a city centre station, hop on a train, and know that they don't have to leave that train until they're in the centre of the city they actually want to travel to. There's no getting a taxi to and from the airport. There's no getting a train to and from the airport, because that's another problem that airports do have, is you've then got to get into the city centre, and most of the time it's on a airport express, which costs an absolute fortune. Why not actually have city centre to city centre travel? And it's something that the coach industry has been doing for a long time now, and the rail industry has kind of been lacking, at least here in the UK, I should say. The rest of the world, you guys have got it nailed. But here in the UK, it's mainly coaches if you want to go city centre to city centre over long, long distances. We need to encourage more rail use, and I think, again, HighSpeed 2 is a very good way of doing that. Connecting HighSpeed 2 to HighSpeed 1 is an absolutely perfect way of doing that. I personally would do that. I would get on a train in I mean, where I live, London would be the nearest high-speed station, and it would be still St Pancras, because Euston wouldn't connect, but you know what I mean. Let's say you lived in Birmingham and you need to go to Paris for a meeting or for a convention, whatever it might be. You can do that in a single rail journey if the connection's made. And again, you can have ICE trains, ICE trains running through the Channel Tunnel. You can have TARLIS trains running through the Channel Tunnel. You could have TGVs. You could have Eurostars. And I know that Eurostar themselves might not like that idea of competition, but I think if you open the doors like that, it really encourages innovation. The Ouigos, for example, probably wouldn't run through the Channel Tunnel, but it might be the case where a lot of people would get on, say, a Eurostar between London and Calais, and as soon as they arrive in Calais, they'll get off the Eurostar and get on a WeGo because it's cheaper, and that will then encourage more companies to think about streamlining their services and providing a cheaper option. So we were talking about this on Discord the other day to do with class systems on HighSpeed 2, and George was saying how he wanted it to be more like the Eurostar model, whereas I wanted it to be a little bit more simple. And we're both coming at it from kind of the same angle. If you make it the same as Eurostar, you create that familiarity of high-speed rail has this kind of system, and I totally agree with that. But I think if you simplify it, you sort of attract the every person a little bit more, the lay person. People who don't necessarily understand the difference between Premier and Business Premier, but do understand the difference between Standard and First. And I think that's another way that you can attract people. Plus, the less classes you have, the more seats you can fit within those classes, and the more tickets you might end up selling. One of the things I did notice in all of these travel vlogs is the number of empty seats there were in the upper class areas of the train. So I watched one in Spain with Italy, with the AGVs, and the first class section, or the higher class, I think is it Preferente they call it, Preferente, was basically empty. No one was using it that day, and it might be packed on other days, but I think if you can't fill it every day, then you're not making your money's worth. Whereas if you have standard class throughout a train, which is what WeGo essentially do, with a couple of exceptions here and there. But if you have a 1,000 capacity train that only has standard class, and you sell it out completely, that to me is better than having 400 first class seats and only selling 10% of them, as well as the rest of the train being full. It's not really for me to do the maths, but I hope you kind of get my point. Like, I used to think about this when I played Roller Coaster Tycoon a lot, was you can charge £2 for a ride and attract 50 people, or you can sell tickets for £1 and attract 150 people, and you end up making more money. Sometimes it's better to lower the price to increase the profit. But I do agree that if you want to standardise it with Eurostar, if you connect HighSpeed 2 to HighSpeed 1, and you do start running Eurostar services from other stations around the UK, then yeah, keep that system. But if you're running HighSpeed 2 as a separate entity to the rest of the HighSpeed network in the UK, then it might be better to simplify the system a little bit more. Even if the ticketing system as a whole is simplified this year or next year, whenever it might be. I watched a travel vlog here in the UK, and they spent about 10 minutes staring at the screen at the ticket machine because they had two different types of ticket for the same price. And you could almost see the gears whirring as to which one do I pick, because ultimately if you pick the wrong one you will get fined on the train if you're travelling at the wrong time of day, for example. But at the same time, if they're both the same price, what's the difference? I don't know. The ticketing system in the UK is ludicrously confusing, and that first of all needs to be rejigged. Whether that's done this year, next year, whatever, it doesn't matter to me. The fact is, it still needs to be redone before you can start worrying about HighSpeed 2 ticketing and how that's going to work. But yeah, I really wanted to bang the drum of Flixtrain and WeGo, because again, we invented railways arguably, and we seem to be a long way behind now in terms of how they should be run. And you look at France, you look at Germany, and even Japan. Japan has 3 different types of bullet train, 3 different types of Shinkansen services, each one offering different prices and different stopping patterns. The ultimate Shinkansen is the non-stop service, and again, that's something we don't really have. Even here on HighSpeed 1, the Javelins stop at every station on the HighSpeed network. So whether it's St Pancras, Stratford, Ebbsfleet, and then diverge onto the Faversham line, or if it's St Pancras, Stratford, Ebbsfleet, Ashford, and then off down towards Dover, it's all stopper. And maybe if we introduced one that didn't stop at, say, Stratford, because not that many people get on and off at Stratford in my experience. The Olympics is over now. No one's using Stratford. No one wants to go shopping at Westfield, let's be honest. But at least I don't. I mean, lots of people do, let's be fair, in the interest of fairness. But most people who want to go there actually go to Stratford and not Stratford International. So I always felt like Stratford International was a really good idea for the Olympics, but there was no kind of afterthought. Eurostars had never planned to stop there. It's way too close to central London for that. And Ebbsfleet's a better candidate for that kind of thing anyway, because you can then just swap onto a Javelin and get on for at Stratford. So it's a bit of a weird one, that. But yeah, we need more options for high-speed rail. We need to encourage more people to get out of their cars, get off the plane, and get on the train. And if we follow the model of mainly WeGo for attracting more people, but also Flixtrain for revolutionising the way that train travel can be affordable. €9, guys. You've just there's no way that you can argue that €9 is not decent value for travelling on a long distance rail route. Say again, Edinburgh to London. You might get there an hour or two after if you took the IETs. But if you're doing it for a fifth of the price, that to me is justified. It depends how you value your time, of course. Some people value their time above others. And I mean, even buses and coaches. I was watching a vlog of getting on a Flixbus from Victoria coach station to Paris's main coach station, which I think is Bercy, which is weird because it's like Percy but with a B. And you go on the Channel Tunnel still, you go on the Le Shuttle, and it takes, I think it was an 8-hour journey, but it's a tenth of the price of a Eurostar. So you're still going from the centre of London to the centre of Paris at a tenth of the price, but it takes you 4 times longer. That to me still is quite justified. I personally couldn't do it because I get sick as a dog on coaches, but I think a lot of people do take that option. The coach looked relatively full, even though it left quite early in the morning. A lot of people do see that as a viable option, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I kind of used to look down on coach travel and just think, ugh. But actually it's a genuinely good, affordable way to travel around the world. And the US have pioneered it with Greyhound, and now Flixbus is starting to dominate Europe. You've got things like National Express as well, in the interest of fairness, although I think they are a little bit more expensive. But I think it's a really cool catalyst for encouraging change. And that's something I've been saying a lot recently, is we need to change the way we do things. It's all well and good saying we invented it, it's our thing, but you get to a point where you have to admit that it's clearly not working, and it's time to change things up. And I think High Speed 2 is a very, very good excuse to trial out privatising the high speed rail and actually making it so that a company owns the rolling stock, manages everything, just pays access charges, just like Flixtrain do. Or we can go the model of maybe the government themselves run a cheaper variant like WeGo, because SNCF is the French government, French state railways, and it seems to work. It seems to work. And the great thing about WeGo is it's not just limited to France. Same with Flixtrain actually. It's not just limited to a single country. It can cross borders. And again, if we have the connection between High Speed 2 and High Speed 1, we can do that too. We can cross borders. You can go through border control in Birmingham, and you get off the train in let's say Amsterdam or Berlin. The sky's the limit as to where train travel can go in Europe, which is something you can't necessarily say about plane travel. There's always going to be a connection that you'll have to make along the way. Whereas if you run a direct service between Birmingham and Berlin, people might not use the entirety of the route. They might get off, say, in Lille, or they might get on in Lille and go to Berlin. But to have that as an option, I think that would be very, very cool. And yes, before anyone asks, there will be examples of all of these coming to the M4J network in the not too distant future. I've already got some plans on cheap, affordable train travel between the top sides of the map and the bottom sides of the map. Some via Gardcity, some via the network central line. More on that in the future. Right, I think that's it for this episode, guys. Thank you very much for watching. I managed to go a whole 30 minutes without ranting. That's got to be a record. No criticisms either. I think, as again, I see this more as an opportunity now. Not to criticise what's happened in the past, but to improve on it, learn from it, and make things better in the future. So no criticisms here from me. But yes, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoyed the video. And of course, if you're enjoying the series, drop some comments down below. Let me know what you think of the idea, whether you think it'll work or not. And feel free to join in the conversation on Discord as well. And of course, the M4J Reddit is there too. Besides that, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button. If you have already subscribed to the channel, thank you guys for your continued support. And until next time, I will see you soon.